Nathan, I really like this angle. I can see the top of your head very well.
Can you see your future in it?
If only.
It's
That'd
not
be
that
great.
shiny tonight.
Maybe in person. I'll test it out when I see you in a couple weeks.
Just
right. I'll bring a
feel a
rag.
little buff going.
Wait, the last time we were there, we talked about like you actually having
No,
a
it's
head
not
shiner.
happening.
No? Oh.
No.
By the way, I've been saving my haircut for when you come. Are you going to be able to bring your stuff?
I wasn't planning on checking a bag, but I suppose I could.
Let me know. I'll literally pay for you to check the bag because I need your haircut.
Well, I need it's the safer option to bring my beloved Prince home too.
Oh, yeah, you definitely need to, especially because if we go to the
they're
show.
not in my car. Oh, I'll send them from San Antonio when I get back. That's what I'm gonna run into.
No, they're in my car. I'll literally send a picture tomorrow to you.
The hostage picture. Is there gonna be a ransom note next to it?
Bring your clippers or else.
Bring your shears or you will never see me again.
Oh, man. Nathan, I'm excited for episode 87.
Yeah, this is a different one. We get to sit back, relax, and just answer questions. That's
right.
a different side of the table to be sitting on.
Yeah, we have, in episode 87, we decided to do something different. We have Alessa with Lilliputpythons on. She's been a Patreon and Discord member of ours since basically the beginning. She's like one of the OG supporters. She's actually one of the moderators as well, and she's extremely active on there. And one thing that we've always appreciated about her is she has just been keeping reptile species for a very long time. But back in 2020, I want to say, she jumped into keeping reticulated pythons, and she's coming up on her first breeding experience. And we thought, why not let her interview us on the questions she has with her first upcoming season potentially. And before we do that, we're going to kind of just let her tell us about herself and ask her some questions about her retics. But outside of that, we're answering the questions. She's interviewing us, and we'll see how this episode goes. And this might be something we continue kind of carrying on in the future. Whether you've poured your heart and soul into your reptile business or you've just begun your business journey, AE Foundry has you covered with next level expertise in graphic design, motion graphics, videography, photography, and so much more. If you've been dying for a new logo for your reptile business, motion graphics for your current logo, a new website, or need assistance making your video podcast come to life, then listen carefully. AE Foundry's mission places storytelling at its core. AE Foundry believes that a distinctive story and background are the driving forces that set your brand apart. In today's market, consumers seek more than just products. They crave a connection built on trust with the brands they cherish. AE Foundry is committed to empowering small businesses and fostering authenticity that resonates with their consumers. Reach out to them and let them help you craft a visual narrative that helps establish a genuine and lasting connection with your audience. To contact AE Foundry, email them at aromero@aefoundry.com or on Instagram at AE Foundry. When it comes to housing your retics, trust me, you're going to want an enclosure that will be just as strong and durable as your reticulated python. The Heartland Reptile enclosure is next level tough and will outlive you and your retic by several generations. Heartland Reptile enclosures are designed and manufactured out of powder-coated aluminum to provide the highest quality and longevity available in the reptile enclosure. What makes them even better is they are lighter than your PVC and plastic enclosures out there and are extremely tough. Stop playing around with plastic enclosures for your large constrictors and step up your enclosure game with the Heartland Reptile enclosure. To inquire about one of these enclosures, speak to Jordan himself at Heartland Reptiles on Instagram, Facebook, and on TikTok.
We also want to thank VivTech Products for being an affiliate sponsor of the TheReticLounge. Stop by VivTech Products for the best UV spectrum lighting on the market that will enhance and improve your snake's overall well-being and health. Visit vivtechproducts.com and use the code ReticLounge23 today for 15% off. Again, visit vivtechproducts.com and use our affiliate code ReticLounge23 today for 15% off. Looking for the perfect accessories for your hatchlings or juvenile retics? Look no further than Heli Guy Serpents. Our sponsor, Chris Sexton, is coming in hot with an amazing 3D printer, creating top-notch perches and other caging accessories for your beloved pets. Enrich your Retic's environment with their high-quality products. Use our promo code TRL10 for a 10% discount on your purchase. Visit them today at heliguyserpents.com and start giving your pets the best. Heli Guy Serpents, the premier source for 3D printed caging accessories. Again, that's www.heliguyserpents.com and use our promo code TRL10 for 10% off all of your 3D printed accessories today.
Want to bring her on?
Oh,
there she is.
Giving me the responsibility tonight. Lucas usually likes to control that.
He said, "Oh,
I back off the mouse. Fingers off."
Alessa, what's going on?"
Nothing much. I'm excited to be here. Excited to be part of this experiment, I guess, if you will say.
Basically, it's like breeding.
Yeah. Let's try something new.
Right.
Yeah.
So I am Alessa Bruso with Lilliputpythons, and I've been keeping reptiles, and I actually had to do the math earlier today. In September, it will be 24 years.
Oh, wow.
My first corn snake was purchased in September of 2000. I was in 9th grade, and it was, I think, 2 weeks before my 14th birthday. So it was. I have very loving parents who were very glad I had a hobby that was not as bad as it could be, also not dance.
Right. Yeah. Dance is expensive and drugs are bad, kids.
Yeah. Drugs bad, dance expensive, swim practice early in the morning. That's what it came down to.
Yeah. I switched to dive team when I was young because it was either swim or dive team growing up, and dive team started after swim.
Oh, okay.
That was the sole reason why I started.
Don't lie. You did synchronized swimming, Nathan.
Only for a little bit.
Synchronized swimming is hard.
Dude, it's awesome.
It is incredibly hard.
Off topic, I watched a video today, actually, coincidentally, of like this Russian dive team that did it to Dark Horse, that Katy Perry song, and it was nuts. Like absolutely insane. I don't know if you've seen the video, but
insight
I literally
to Lucas's free time.
That literally came up on your For You page. Don't ask me why.
Right next to all the videos of reticulated pythons. It's just reticulated pythons,
and synchronized swimming,
carpet pythons, Russian synchronized swimming. Just
exactly
right there. But speaking of reticulated pythons, I see what I did there. I did start keeping retics officially in 2020, although I did have 2 super dwarf crosses. I guess it was maybe back in 2015. Unfortunately, neither of them was healthy. One of them I received as a hatchling and he died of a seizure. And the other one I received as a subadult, and she just was never quite right. I kind of wish now, looking back on it, I had gotten a necropsy done to find out what she passed from, but it felt almost like some type of weird failure to thrive. Like I received her. I was told at the time she was maybe 3 or 4, and she's, looking back on it, was the size of some of my snakes when they were 2.
Oh, geez. Okay.
So
and it wasn't a Partho?
I was told she was not. I did not have a ton of information on her. It was someone who was moving out of them, and I took the opportunity, and it didn't work out, but tried again a few years later, and I'm, what is it now, 9 pythons deep, so.
Okay. Well, jumped in to the deep end with them. Let me ask you this. Is your corn snake still around?
No. So the first corn snake I ever got, she died on the younger side. I think she was only 8. That was very sudden. We found her half in her eye, half out, passed away. But the second snake I got, who I think I purchased 6 months later, lived to be 21.
Okay.
And I still have the first ball python I ever got. She is turning, I believe, 21 this year.
Nice.
So probably right about now, actually, thinking back on it. So
Yeah. I always like to ask those questions when
Yeah.
people have been keeping for a while. I feel like longevity of animals that people have alive, like the older they are, the testament of,
Yeah.
their keeping and husbandry. And, to have any snake make it 20 years is, maybe this is ignorance because I come from mostly the retic side of things, but it's pretty impressive.
I do have one corn snake now who's in the high teens. We'll see how long he lives, but he's still pretty healthy. The one I had who lived to 21 was in very good shape until I think her last 8 months of life. She started to decline, but yeah, and I have another ball python who's also in the high teens.
Okay.
So,
That's just a normal, right?
yeah, both of those are normals. I do have some morph animals, but they're all closer to 10, I guess. I mean, still not super young, but to me, that's young.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm curious. So since you're going to be interviewing us later on
Yes.
breeding, have you bred any of your snakes before?
Not on purpose. And
Okay.
so when I was keeping corn snakes many, many moons ago, I did cohab 2 snakes who were supposedly both female.
Not so
You can see where
much.
this is going,
Mhm.
and ended up with eggs. And then the female I don't know if she retained sperm or something else, but she did lay eggs a couple seasons after that. And I never incubated them because I didn't have the means to comfortably raise, 12, 15 baby corn snakes. So the eggs unfortunately just went in the trash, but I always felt that was a little better than having a bunch of baby snakes I couldn't take care of.
I
Because
had a
I
friend.
was
Thing.
I had a
in like
friend who took one
high
home
school.
from a pet store once that was gravid, and he had no idea.
Jackpot.
And he didn't even know that she had laid the eggs until he looked in, and he let her maternally incubate them, and they hatched.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Mine did not try to incubate them. She just left them under her hide and went about her
See ya.
day. So yeah, she's like, you take care of this, is your problem now.
Yeah.
And then there were just a bunch of little snakes, and he took them back to the pet store. He's like, "You want them?"
I think that's actually how my first snake
That's
came to be at
awesome.
the pet store. Was someone had 2 corn snakes, actually incubated the eggs, sold the snakes back to the pet store, and I ended up with one of the babies. So yeah,
Okay.
this was back in the mom and pop pet store days where
Yeah.
you could buy a snake and then sell the offspring back. Yeah.
I've always wanted to, maybe I'll get the chance to with carpets, but even though I'm working with like locality specific carpets, the ones that I've got. So, but I thought it'd always be cool to be able to like take it to a reputable, like very good, not like Petco or anything, but
Yeah.
there's a pet stop. There's a pet shop nearby here that houses all the reptiles in bio-natural enclosures and does a phenomenal job. And it'd always be cool, I feel like, to see one of my snakes in there like being sold.
Yeah. I might have that ability when I produce reticulate pythons, if I produce them. I'm hoping to, because they're my favorite species that I've kept so far.
Tell us about that. So before that, what other species of snakes or reptiles have you kept? And since they're your favorite, like why?
Yes. So I've corn snakes and ball pythons, obviously. I feel like that's both a requirement and also because I still have 2 right now. I've also kept pine snakes. I have 2 of those right now. And in the past, I'm trying to remember back to everything. I have a Solomon Island ground boa right now. And actually, I have 2 more on the way soon. But I think the thing with retics is the intelligence. Being able to see those gears working and really interact with them. I wouldn't necessarily say in a way you can't interact with another snake with, but I feel that how they interact with you is almost a lot more intense than other species. And for me, at least, that's a really enjoyable experience.
They give you so much more than other species is the way that I kind of like to describe it, is when you're handling them, taking them out the enclosure, even just watching them in their enclosure, I feel like they're giving back.
I think there's a lot more ebb and flow than with other species I've kept, who kind of just see you as this weird ice cream truck that comes through the room every so often. So either rats from the sky or stealing their poop.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put
Yeah,
it.
no, I mean, even if I don't interact with them, they interact with you through their enclosure if you're just in the room.
Oh, yeah. And even if they're not trying to come out to interact with you one-on-one, they are watching, they are observing. There's an
Yep.
awareness there that I think I really enjoy.
Nathan, did you see the video I posted on or Alessa, did you as well see the video I posted of my ternate female?
Yeah, I have a very similar conversation every few days with mine.
Nate, if you're able to pull it up, if not, if it takes
I'm
too
gonna
long,
try.
but
Yeah.
yeah. So on the Discord, on the show off your retics thread, I post a video. If we can get the volume 2, it's pretty damn funny. But yeah, no, I walked in, she slammed the glass twice after having a meal literally 2 or 3 days ago. And obviously, I'm pretty sure it's just a coincidence, but I'm pointing at her and telling her to like calm down. And she's all like postured up and everything. And after the second time I told her to calm down, she just kind of like just sits down. But it's stuff like that I really like about the retics, is just how much they interact with you, even when they're in the enclosure. Now, while Nathan's pulling that up, you know, what retics do you like have right now?
So I have the 3 I have from 2020 are a male platinum who is 62.5% super dwarf of unknown or dubious locality, and 6.25 jamp. I also have his sister from the same clutch who is a normal. They're both het anery. I have an anery motley who's I think 31.25% Kalatoa, and then another 25% Jamp, who is ironically my smallest snake. Go figure. I have a beautiful 50% Coyote Sunfire. Oh, here's the video. Yeah.
No, I can't hear the volume, but that's okay.
I can't hear the volume.
So I'm over here telling it like, no, calm down. I was like, you just ate 3 minutes ago or three days ago. And she just kind of like sits down and she's like,
all right. Okay, fine.
She's funny. That's the one that parthoed out.
Oh. Yeah, but yeah, so for mine, so I have that 50% Coyote, 25% Jampea Sunfire. I have another Anery Motley from the it's like a 30-something% Madu, 30-something% Kalatoa, 3-point-something% Jampea Clutch. And then I have Pygmy Line from Daniel Solis. I have a Ternate male, who I think you two are the two who convinced me to get him.
Is it it's a Ternate male, or is it a Super Maluku?
No, it's a Ternate. He's pure.
Nice.
He's F2 Ternate.
Oh, F2. That's right.
Yeah.
And so you were talking about how that's one of your sweetest snakes.
It's interesting. He's more aware of things that kind of could creep him out when I'm holding him. But in terms of picking him up, he's one of the first to just fall asleep on you. Okay, or at least on me. I haven't tried it on anyone else yet. And of course, I have the infamous ThePoopleAlbino.
Yep.
From
Everyone needs to follow the ThePoopleAlbino on Instagram.
The ThePoopleAlbino on Instagram. She has her own Instagram because her back says poo poo. And I am 12 and find that hilarious.
I am 6 and find that even funnier.
Oh, it's great. I show her picture to people because I have to explain that I have a snake who says poo poo. And they're like, okay, yeah. And I'm like, no, you tell me this does not say poo poo.
Yeah, I tell people all the time still. Like I teach barber students, and like almost every new class knows about the ThePoopleAlbino.
Yeah, and she's a great snake too. She's beautiful, calm, wonderful. Yeah, and so speaking to someone who I actually have an animal that they produced, might be a good time to start asking questions.
Yeah, I'm down. Before we even jump in, we were talking about so I just kind of wanted to give a shout out to the Patreon and kind of just throw in that plug. We had a Zoom call on Friday, and she had her ThePoopleAlbino out, and I had Nathan's tiger that I got from him, and both of them just sitting on top of our heads. And Nathan did a great job with that clutch. But so if you guys aren't a member of our Patreon and want to connect with other awesome people like Alessa, we do Zoom calls every other Friday. And
it's Sunday now.
Oh yeah, it is Sunday now. We switch it to Sundays. And just want to be a part of probably the most active Retic Discord out there. Come join us.
Yep, come have discussions, share your pictures. It's a lot of fun. Oh, maybe play D&D soon.
Yeah. We might be starting a D&D that Alessa is actually going to coordinate and kind of be our master
DM.
Our DM,
game master, dungeon master. Yep.
Exactly.
All right. Well, let's turn the time over to Alessa. This is your show now.
Oh boy, that's terrifying. So, starting the breeding process, starting from the beginning, when do you start planning your breedings for each season? And kind of to piggyback on that, what influences which snakes you plan to pair? Is it things like current market conditions, the thing you most want to keep yourself, so you are making yourself something, or is it just a combination of all of
that? Lucas, you want to start off?
Sure. Yeah. I think when I first got into this, I paid a lot more attention to the market. Because I had aspirations of I was going to do a bunch of morphs and locality stuff as well. So obviously, I knew cow toes were in demand, and, I got the wild caught pair and wanted to pair them, but also that was kind of up my alley with the locality stuff. Now I have noticed when I produce a clutch that, results in morphs, not a pure locality. I don't nearly get excited when I open up those tubs to feed them. So a lot of my future pairings are going to be just strictly locality based. I like that excitement, with the Solaire clutch I have the Mindanao, Philippines incubating that should be due in less than a month. And, that's the stuff that really excites me. So it took me 4 seasons for me to really be okay, this is the stuff that drives me. So I would say it's mostly geared towards what I enjoy keeping, to where if I don't sell any of them, I'll be happy to have all of them in my rack. And I think it just so happens that localities are going to have a steady demand, right? I don't expect the Mindanao, Philippines to fly off the shelves like the Solaire's did, but for the purpose of the market, I plan to do 2 localities a year and not repeat them back to back ever. So I also want to make sure I'm not flooding the market. As quickly as I sold these Solaire's, one person would be oh, just make more for next year. And I don't want to do that. I want to keep the desire for different localities, that I want to keep the interest high and not just pump them out because they sold good one year. So it's a little bit of both. I'm playing with the locality market a little bit, but I'm also just making sure that what I do produce moving forward is going to be something that if I have to hold back for a year, I'm going to love watching them grow.
So I would say for me, I start thinking about my breeding years in advance. There's, 2 genes that I'm really working with, and then there's a 3rd gene that I want to bring in the future to, put my dream snake together. So it's all very emotion based for me. I wouldn't say so much market, but I'm lucky that one of the genes I love is the Snow Project. So, right now I'm just trying to run my Snow projects back to different animals. I'm going to take my 100% snow male to my anery this year and just try to make some really small platinum combos, and then be able to do that with some phantom combos down the road. And then eventually, when OGS is a little bit more attainable in a smaller package, then I can make my cow combos that I want to. But I think that's kind of my end goal with Retics right now, unless something else comes along the way. But Anthrax is always in the picture. But Yeah, I think my influences in what snakes I plan to breed are just, what do I want to keep and what do I not mind feeding for 8 months if I have to.
By the way, when you make cows, I've been wanting one just like as a pet. I'm going to hold off until you do.
Well, I want a cow that's going to stay the size of my purple albino,
Exactly.
So it's something I can wait on.
Both good answers. So once you pick out those animals, whether it's locality, whether it's a morph you want to see, when do you start cycling your females? Do you base it off of your temperatures in your area? Do you try to base it more off of when a female would cycle in Malaysia? Or is it you let the female kind of dictate when she does or doesn't want to cycle?
You go first, Nathan.
So I try to look at their appetite more than anything, but I notice a big increase once the fall weather kind of starts hitting here around Utah. Once we get a couple storms in the way, like they really start ramping up in how often they're wanting to eat. So usually around like late September, early October is when I start feeding heavy. Not like anything crazy, just ramping up by an extra week. And, if they cycle, they cycle. I'm not ever really trying to push it. So if I'm trying to cycle a female, I start, increasing her feeding around September.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. And I'm gonna try to keep this short because I know that this is, the information is for you and you're someone who doesn't have a single retic in your collection that has cycled, right? Because once an animal has cycled for the first time and you've gotten it to breed, after that you can kind of play it like clockwork.
Yeah.
Right.
That, and I'm in the belief that your location really plays an influence.
Right.
Storms really play an influence on
right.
When a female will cycle.
Right.
So,
a lot of like old school retic people are going to hear my answer and also just hear like what Nathan just said right now. And they're going to say, oh, it's a lot more simple than that. You just need to food cycle, which isn't fully incorrect. Mm-hmm. But I personally don't believe that that's the correct way to cycle a retic. And so if I'm cycling a retic for the first time, I'm looking at several different factors. The first one is age, right? So like bare minimum is I'm looking at the like 4-year-old range, right? I've made the mistake that I'm going to share with you to not do, and that's to try the cycling process before she demonstrates signs. So Nathan mentioned the sign, like a big increase in food drive. That's normally, if you allow them to do it by themselves, that's normally going to correlate when it's colder and the stormy weather starts to roll in your area. So
barometric pressure changes.
Exactly. I absolutely am going to recommend, and I do this myself now, is use your climate as like, don't make it harder than it needs to. Your weather outside is going to only help you be more successful. And so I know for me in San Antonio, we have a rainy season in like March and April. We also have one September, October. So those are the two different times of the years that I see females start to build follicles. And when that happens and the temperature starts to drop, I notice my females like just start like females were, if their food response is high, I would normally just tap once or twice and be able to pull her out. That's not working anymore. And once that's the case, I will start shoving her food. And when I mean shoving her, I don't like to do this for more than like 6 to 8 weeks, but just every 7 to 10 days, I'm giving her a really, really, really big meal. And that's signaling to her food is at a surplus. I can build up calories and it's safe enough for my body to go through the reproductive cycle. And a lot of first time breeders will keep trying to push after the weather is no longer helping them. And that's where you can see like a lot of rapid growth with your females and them not cycle because you just keep hitting them heavy. I've made that mistake twice already. So I'm changing my approach with my new females to only utilize my temperatures, my barometric pressures, and their behavior as an indicator rather than my desire to get them to breed at 4 years old.
It's good to know because I have one female who is currently going absolutely bananas.
Yeah.
Wanting food.
I want to say I also want to make sure if that animal is just 4 years old, that like body composition looks good.
Yeah.
I'm actually not planning to breed her anytime soon because she is the smaller of my 2 4-year-old females. It
Yeah.
is the pygmy line girl, and she has a higher percentage of super dwarf in her at 100% versus the 62.5%. So she is naturally smaller. So I would prefer to wait at least a year with her. So,
Yeah.
I
but
have
she
a
is
really small 87.5% Kalatoa tiger from Daniel, and she'll be coming up on I think she'll be 6 this year.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I haven't bred her yet because I'm like, she's tiny.
Yeah.
This
Don't
doesn't mean
be
she doesn't want food. She just is small.
right.
Oh, she wants
don't
food.
don't be surprised though. Like I got a buddy of mine who has a 2020 Coyote from Garrett that is still pretty small. He wasn't even trying her. She went off of food by herself. So you might be surprised. You might, again, they know way better than we do. And so if you're not like maintenance feeding, and you've sent pictures of the size meals that you give them, you don't maintenance feed. If you're not maintenance feeding, that she just might go for you. And the moment you see her, if she takes a prey item very gingerly, right, you can almost guarantee after that meal she's probably going to cycle off, and you can throw a male in with her.
Well, the funny thing is, I don't think the male I'd like to cross her to will be big enough, so she might have to wait anyways.
Lucas?
Don't even worry about.
The ternate, he's wee, and I don't think he's going to be
How old is
mature
he?
this year. He's not even a year yet.
Yeah,
probably not.
Because I was gonna say, I mean, for a mainland, like I had my mainland male at a year old. He was only 5 feet, but I mean, he bred to a 13-foot, like 60-pound mainland female, and I was like watching this little dude just go off. It's so funny seeing these tiny little arches next to a female that's like this thick.
That ironically does segue into my next question, though. How do you handle males who want to breed but will not be paired during a season? So once you have a female cycling, that scent is in the air and they start pushing.
Mm-hmm.
How do you deal with that? How do you keep the male healthy, even though he's not going to be having a great time this breeding season?
So I didn't cycle this year. I half tried with one of my females, but I didn't like really push the food sizes that high. And there was a period of time where he, just was acting a bit more hungry, a bit more testy when I would open his enclosure. But it's just, hook handling when you notice those behaviors from the male. So, get him out like any retic, rub him under the chin with the hook for a minute, pick him up with your hand, and then control the front half with the hook as you're putting him into the tub. And, just try to control the situation as much as possible and as calmly as possible.
Yeah. For me, I'm going to be honest. The only males that I have ever had an issue with showing male, like what people refer to as male breeding behavior that you have to be on your toes about, have both been 2 different wild-caught males. Outside of those wild-caught Kalatoas, I tell people all the time that, like, a lot of people, are always like, oh, get a female, don't get a male. You don't want the male breeding behavior. My males are the biggest puppy dogs in my garage, even during breeding season. I might get, they might tickle and spur my forearm during breeding season. But I am way more concerned about the female's food just savage behavior than I am about like male breeding behavior. And I'm going to be honest, since I moved my collection into the garage on ambient, it's very rare that I have a male push even during breeding season.
But you're probably not handling a male that's arching in his cage actively.
No. And like I said, like the only males that have done that for me have been the wild caughts. All the captive bred ones or even the F1s.
They don't arch until they get in the female's cage.
Basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been lucky in that fact. I know plenty of other people that, you know, could speak the complete opposite to that, but if that
I've kind of noticed the same. I haven't noticed a ton of arching in the cage, but I wanted to leave that for one of the later questions.
Oh, one thing that I will say in regards to that is if I do take out a female that's cycling with the hook and I use that same hook with the male, oftentimes if I rub their back or if they smell the hook, they might start arching prematurely, but even if they're arching in the enclosure before I do an introduction with my captive breds, I typically don't have to hold them any different unless they give me a reason to. And if they do, the answer is exactly what Nathan said.
Well, and then I also try to handle the males before the females, even if I'm not trying to cycle.
Right.
Just to, you know, take that variable out of the picture.
That's a good idea. Never thought of that clearly.
So actually my next question has already been answered, but we'll skip over it to the one after that. So you've discussed snake introductions in previous episodes. I think you've covered that quite well, but what do you do if things go wrong and one or both of the snakes becomes aggressive? And have you experienced that and how did you handle it?
That just happened to me.
Yeah.
For the first time. I mean, I've had introductions before where the female would just tail waggling, pissing, like not ready, right? And when that happens, it's a simple like open up the other side of the enclosure, tap the female, grab the hook, yank the male out of there, and just get him out of there as safely and as you can, right? Like in you're watching both snakes. Fortunately for me, I do have help sometimes when I'm in the garage. And so I have a second set of hands where, you know, they'll be on one side, I'll be on the other, and we'll work together to get the animals out. I was recently, it was about a month ago, probably maybe 5-6 weeks, where they were behaving together and at times were cuddling. But I had a situation where I walked into my garage first thing in the morning. The light timers turned on. Oh, my light in the back went out. Speaking of lights. So the lights turned on. And with the lights turning on and me being in there, it I guess triggered the male to have like a food response and the female's kind of up by the enclosure. And the male bit and wrapped her like a food response. First time that's ever happened to me. And I'm going to say like instinct kind of just kicked in where I grabbed both of their bodies at the same time. I put them down on the floor. I grabbed a bottle of brown Listerine, sprayed it into the male's mouth and the female's mouth. They kind of unwrapped. Then I had a female that kind of was like in food mode and a male that was kind of in food mode that I had to like tap and move away. And I ended up grabbing the male, left the female there, put the male back, and then grab the female and put her back. It could have been way worse. I know that people like, the male was not bleeding at all, and the female maybe had just like 3 or 4 dots of blood on the bottom of her chin.
Still scary. Still definitely scary.
Yeah, it was not something I ever would like to happen again, but if I'm being honest, it's going to happen, especially with chondros that I'm going to start breeding in the future. Talk to a lot of people. It seems to happen quite a bit.
I've only experienced the tail wagging, the scenting, that kind of thing. When my anery was a lot smaller, probably 5-6 foot at the time, still pretty slender bodied. I ended up finding one of her clutch mates on our local classifieds and brought him home, treated him for some stuck shed, got him fed up, and just was trying to show a picture to the local breeder. So I took them both out, had them next to each other, was trying to get a picture taken of them, and kind of the same thing. Male went after the female. They both kind of wrapped each other. Didn't have anything to spray in their mouth, but just kind of unwound the male because he was really fairly small at the time, and just freaked out for a second, got them apart, and never had those two together again.
Sometimes you just don't get along with your sibling.
Yeah. Sibling rivalry.
Well, at least you
But
both.
I didn't even notice blood on that one.
That's good, at least.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good to hear that people have had these experiences and the animals have been mostly, if not completely, fine afterwards.
Well,
And-
I think like worst case scenario is kind of Eric Lee's example of one of his first retic introductions when he was in like high school or college. Paired a female, and
Oh, they were wild caught too.
yeah, and I mean huge lacerations on the female. And he treated the wounds, and she shed out fairly soon after that, and made a full recovery. So
they're shockingly tough animals.
yeah, they're resilient.
Yeah, no, retics. Yeah, I can agree. I mean, I don't think there's many other snakes out there that can take a beating like retics can and recover by themselves.
Yeah, it's insane.
So all of those happy stories aside, when doing introductions, do you ever do what I've heard referred to as a howdy, which is where you have two animals who are able to see and smell each other but not directly interact? And if you don't do this, is it just because it never worked out that way, or do you have a specific reason you don't?
This is what I was saving a little bit of information for.
Mm.
So
Info
no,
drop.
I haven't purposefully done this. But during pairing for the clutch that I produced with the ThePoopleAlbino, the phantom male, he was out of pairing for a feeding, so I fed him, and I think it was on feeding day. Fed him, and he has two locks on the top of his enclosure. It's a single drop down door, and just forgot to lock one side. So
We've all done something like that.
yeah, luckily they're all enclosed in a room. I shut the door religiously. The cats can't get in here, and I have security cameras up. So if something like that does happen, I can locate, or at least try to locate what happened to that animal. So yeah, one of my only escapes, the male gets out, and there's footage of him all night just falling off of stuff, climbing over cages, but most importantly, he knocks over a trash can that's in front of the female's enclosure and just starts arching all over the place. All over the place. I'm like, all right, you're going back in. Like, I was going to wait another day or two till you pooped, but no, I'll deal with it later.
When you sent me that video, I was laughing hysterically.
It's still one of my
it's
favorite videos of my animals.
There's a component of retics that they are so smart, right? But like, man, a male in breeding mode is such a dummy. Like literally
if you tell anyone that these animals are smart and then show them that video, they'll never believe you.
Exactly. So, and clearly we as keepers that have experience with retics know where their intelligence shines. But it's just funny when you can like look at something and you're really like, really, dude? Really?
Yeah. So I don't think it's a bad idea. They will pinpoint where they want to go. I promise you that.
Right.
Yeah.
For my answer, the closest thing that I've done, what was the term that you said?
I've heard zoos refer to it as a howdy because you can say howdy through the door.
Gotcha.
But it's kind of an introduction without either using some type of barrier or through an enclosure, or even just using something like I have a mesh playpen that I can put near an enclosure that they can smell each other through. But
Gotcha.
there's a barrier.
So I do something similar, but like not very. So it's not the same concept, but it's my way of doing it. Anytime I do an introduction, I take the female fully out of the enclosure, and I put the male in her enclosure while it's dirty. And I put the male in, and I will just watch the male, sometimes 30, 45 minutes, just like you would if you were doing an introduction. And sometimes I will remove the male completely if he's not showing any type of breeding behavior. But 10 out of 10 times when my females have been cycling, within 5 minutes of me putting him in that enclosure, he's arching. He's starting to smell and doing the crazy tongue flicks and moving his head back and forth. And then what I do after that is he's not in food mode, right? So what I'll do is during that process, I typically will leave the door open. And then I'll tap him. Like I'll basically go like I'm going to take him out, but I don't. I just kind of bring him to me and then let him go back in. Meanwhile, right when I do that, on the opposite side of the enclosure, I'll put the female in. And so what that helps me do is both of them are no longer in food mode. I see the male is engaging in breeding like behavior. So I know that the female's giving something off. Not always, because sometimes it's the female below or above. That's happened to me before too. And then I'll put the female in. And then I just sit there and I watch.
Patience. You don't want to spook them when they're first around each other for the first time. So like not rushing that female in.
Right.
Sitting there being patient, letting her go in on her own pace.
Yeah, you're not going to, bother the back of her tail to kind of encourage her to go in quicker. You're not going to kind of toss her body in there. Sorry, Mike. But you're going to just, let her do her thing. And then while she's doing that, I keep a hook in my hand and I'm there to tap him on the head, to tap her on the head. I'm continuing to desensitize any potential food response.
Good advice, and definitely something to think about, knowing how Retics act when they think there might possibly be food.
Especially with the ternate and Halmahera localities, those are animals that you can take out and they're all hunky-dory, and 5 minutes into a handling session, they have their face up against your hand and they're constricting the hell out of your arm, and for some reason they just kick into random food mode. Yeah,
that's always fun.
You'll notice that, Alessa. I'd be shocked if it didn't happen with your male at least once as it's going through a growth spurt.
I've had it happen with non-ternate locality, so
Yeah.
I think they'll catch a whiff of like something, maybe like a little tiny drop of rat water got on the floor, and I haven't like scrubbed the entire floor that week, and just immediately they'll start kind of get a little twitchy and tighter. And
I notice it on the females sometimes when they're ramping up for cycling.
Yeah, well,
they'll be going back into their enclosure.
And
you think they're
tighten.
out of the food mode, and then they'll just wrap their lower third around you and get tighter and
you
tighter.
just try to
Then you
yank
see them
off.
just turning their head nefariously back towards you.
Yeah.
Dude, the
You're
very
like, nope, that's not happening.
the first time I took
my two females are doing that right now, both of them. So.
Dude, the first time I got this new Solaire in, first time I took her out, and I had to put her back in. We're talking about a female that's like 80, 85 pounds. She did that to me. Scariest thing freaking ever. She just came back out, mouth open. I had the door right there. I closed it on her body to prevent her from rocking me in the face. Was not fun.
That's too much a percentage of my body weight.
Right, exactly.
That's nope.
That's a good enough percentage of mine.
Yeah,
Right,
that's,
I'm good.
That's too much percentage of a human for me. But more power to you.
Fun times.
Lucas, you're so strong.
Always fun.
No, I had Sean there with me, dude.
I'm kidding.
Lucas plus one other person is so strong.
There you go. I'll take that.
But speaking of our beloved female snakes, egg binding is always a fear with any time you're dealing with breeding. Have either of you ever dealt with it before? How did you handle it?
No.
And
but
do
I
you
know
think there's a
Lucas
way to
has.
prevent it?
Lucas, I'm going to divert all this to you.
Yeah, so I'll start off by saying this. Superdors, pure superdors in general, are a lot more notorious of egg binding compared to mainlands. As a matter of fact, that's why a lot of people that like started getting into them back in like the 2010s decided to ditch a lot of them, is because a lot of the imports and a lot of the F1s had egg binding issues. You can even look at someone as great as Garrett. You know, he struggled with egg binding from time to time. And I know Rodney has talked about, you know, that's the main reason why he got out of it. Fortunately for me, for super dwarfs, I haven't had any of that. However, I was pretty sure accidentally, I was shipped a snake that was already gravid. They thought that she was only in the follicular, you know, stages. And, you know, they tried getting her out to me as soon as possible. And when I got her, she only had like one small meal. I'd put in males with her. None of them were interested. And she went into a shed. And the moment after she shed, she started inverting. And I was like, oh, she's gravid. And so long story short, she ended up getting egg bound. And after, so basically the way that I handled it is I called up my vet, you know, and my vet is phenomenal. And he said, feed her and see how she bounces back. So started feeding her. She started getting back on food right away. What I started doing, as gross as it sounds, it's just the reality of sometimes what you have to do. And now that I'm thinking back on it, I don't know how effective it is, but I was putting fish oil tablets into rabbits and pigs' assholes to add some extra lubrication, right? And now that I think about it, the digestive tract and the reproductive tract, two separate things. So don't even know how effective that is really, but it's something.
I mean, I know that sometimes hormones that cause you to like have to go to the bathroom can also make your nose run.
There you go.
I mean, who knows? It's not the craziest thing I've ever heard.
Right. So about a month and a half after, about 3-4 meals in, she passed one. And then I let my doctor know and the vet know. And, you know, I sent him a picture and clearly she still had one at the very bottom. But what was good is I saw it like moving down, right? Mm-hmm. So he's like, as long as you see it moving down closer to the vet, see if she could pass it on her own. She never was able to. So now we're like 3 months past and I brought her into the vet. They did an x-ray, confirmed it was only one egg. And fortunately for her, he was able to palpate it out. You know, he put some good old KY and just kind of moved around and kind of pushed it out and was able to plop the egg right out. She was a sweetheart during the entire process too.
And that's not our secret new sponsor, because you said that brand very proudly.
No, it's not.
Okay, cool.
It's not. I was just shocked. Like he pulled out KY and I was like, damn, okay. Good to know. Yeah. And so after that, I kind of just gave her some small meals, kind of let her recover a bit. And I got lucky. A lot of people aren't quick. A lot of people don't consult with a vet, and many retics die egg bound. Eventually they go septic because the egg burst inside of them. And, you know, and that leads to also like, you know, just a sidebar, follicular stasis, which is essentially if you, what I've noticed with retics, and this happened with, what was her name? Fluffy. The retic that Jay had.
Yeah, I was going to say the big one,
the
prehistoric.
Large female,
the amelanistic, you know, her cause of death, if I'm not mistaken, was follicular stasis. And essentially when you have a snake that's reproducing and you choose to not introduce males and everything, what ends up happening is the follicles will continue to get bigger and bigger because they don't ever swell down back to their normal size. And eventually they literally will get egg bound with just follicles and they'll die. So it's also important. Like a lot of people are like, I hear a lot of people say like, oh, this female's 15. I'm just going to stop breeding her. And it's like, that's, if she cycles and she goes off of food, that's probably the most like, I don't know. To me, it's, if they're wanting to breed, you got to breed them because you don't want that happening.
Yeah. I have had a female who, you know, went through the full cycle but wasn't introduced to a male. And luckily she absorbed, but it could have ended up a lot different. So
Yeah.
I would probably advocate the same. And, if you're not wanting to breed that year and it's just for the safety of that female, then, dump your eggs.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, if you don't have the means to take care of them, there isn't a market, whatever the case may be. But
Yeah.
if they go, it's okay to like, they go off of it. It's okay to give them a year off, right? And whatever the case may be. But like, if you set like a set in stone, like I'm not breeding her anymore, and she continues to do that and doesn't have a partho clutch, or doesn't lay a retained sperm clutch, eventually those follicles won't ever shrink back down. They'll continue to just get bigger each year, and it can kill your female.
That's very good to know. I think for a lot of people, especially if your female accidentally cycles, or you're in a situation where you were thinking, oh, I can just safely retire this animal.
Yeah. Like I said, one or 2 years every once in a while, it could be advantageous for the snake's health. But, at the end of the day, they're going to cycle if they have the means to. I believe they know what's better than we do. And if a female goes off of food and is cycling, it's because she feels she has, she knows herself better than we do.
That's why I did stretch out my feedings this year when I wasn't cycling my purple.
That's what I had to do for my wild caught.
Minimum 4 weeks, and they weren't like huge meals, but they were good meals, but nothing giant.
Yeah, I had to do that for my wild caught this year. She kept wanting to cycle for me, and she was going on her 5th year, what would have been her 5th year in a row. And so I decided, like, I was feeding her, 1 pound meals, 1.25 pound meals every like 4 to 6 weeks. And she finally did not go off of food or cycle.
And I now know how big a 1.25 pound pig is.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Now there's reference.
Yeah. That is a decently small meal for a full grown adult female.
Yeah. Yeah. For a, 13-plus-year-old wild caught animal.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's like a stack.
It left
like
a baby lump in her. Exactly.
It's like a bag of chips. But on the happier end of females laying eggs, what do you use as a lay box, and what in your mind is the ideal lay box, both from the point of view of us as the humans and the snake, what the snake would prefer? And have you ever had a snake not use the lay box?
Okay.
Love this question. That's huge.
Yeah, that's a fun one, because my first year, I can't remember if I totally set up a lay box. I don't think I did. No, I didn't. Mostly because I didn't know for sure when she was going to lay. Like, I had some signs she was going to lay, all of her, post-ovulation sheds and all of that. But I was also down with the back infection. So probably not number one priority was finding the best lay box for her. But the second year that I bred her, I just experimented around when she had her post-ovulation shed, and just found one of my little Sterilite tubs that I have in here, and just saw which one that she could really snugly fit herself into, and just put it in there and saw if she took a liking to it. And she did. So, I just kept it in there for the majority of the time. And if she used it, she used it. If not, then, I'd pull the eggs the old school way, like I did the year before.
What substrate do you use?
Well, the lay box, there was nothing in it besides just the paper that I use for bedding.
Love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oftentimes, so like, just to answer your question, like, what's the best lay box for them? It's if you can have a naturalistic enclosure and you can build like a cave-like system, like Rick O'Neill.
Yeah.
Rick O'Neill has an amazing setup where he literally will set up like a lay box and put like, I don't even know what he does, so I could be incorrect, but basically
almost like a big version of a monitor lay box.
Right, like it's a cave.
Yeah.
And they go in there and they'll lay in there, and it's amazing. He probably, out of anybody I've seen ever provide a naturalistic like lay box, he does it the best. Now, what I have used is I use the 30 core iris, basically the same thing I put my eggs in. And I offer every one of my females a lay box. Ironically, I've now had probably 7 or 8 clutches. And I've only had a female use them twice. Well, let me redact that statement. I've only had a female lay in them twice. What's funny is every female will lay in it at some point, but then they always lay on top of the damn shelf. And it's the biggest pain in the ass to pull a clutch on a female.
The shells.
Yeah, because they beehive around so high that I have like maybe a 3-inch clearance, 4-inch at most.
The lip, there's a little lip on those shelves because I have the same shelf, and I'm just now imagining trying to get a snake plus the egg glue.
So what I've had to do is, fortunately for me, I've always had bedding in the enclosure when they lay on that shelf. So what I've had to do is I've had to secure the eggs first. So basically I'm lifting her up, I'm pulling the eggs out from under her, and I'm lifting the eggs out. And then I have to take her out to kind of soak her and, clean the enclosure. Unless she's like really pissed off, but that's only happened once. And so, but yeah. And then as far as bedding goes, so on the very bottom layer, I kind of mix it up, but I'll use my Retic chip, and I use, what's this word that I love to struggle with on the podcast? Sphagnum. Sphagnum. But anyways, so I'll use
Should have quit while you were ahead.
Sphagnum moss and Retic chip, cocoa bedding, for Nathan's sake, and I'll mix that up, and I will, and I literally take my sink, water. I have like a hose attached to it, and I'll spray it down nice and wet, make it super humid. I'll stick it in there, and when I choose to introduce it is when I see the female getting restless. 90% of the time, my females at some point about 2 weeks before laying start to get restless and pace back and forth. And I'll put a lay box in there, and they'll take to it. And then majority of the time, majority of the time, 3 days before, like that's the funny part is, a female will be laying in there for 2 weeks. And then the moment I see her leave there, I know I'm due to have eggs within 5 days.
They appreciate your effort, but
right. Exactly.
At least they can be predictable sometimes.
Yeah,
exactly. That is nice about it. When you do it enough times, you start to, see the correlations and you can come to some general conclusions.
So once you have those eggs, 1, when do you start warming up your incubator? And 2, in your opinion, what is the best incubator available for reptile eggs right now? And this can be something handmade, or this can be a commercial product.
Good question.
I heat up my incubator months before I have eggs. I want to make sure that, I have the parameters I'm looking for. Don't have any hot spots. Don't need to replace any equipment in the incubator itself. Also, once I start seeing signs that the female's closer to laying, I start getting lay boxes ready around that time. So I have those ready ahead of time. But the incubator side of things, I haven't found what I've totally loved. I believe once I switched to an industrial kind of, fridge setup, I'm probably going to have a lot better results. It seems like a lot of people that I look up to and, just people that have been doing it a long time are still using those. So,
right. Yeah, I would say that the best incubator, there's the Wilbanks, that's like $2,000 for their large one. There's the PVC one, sea serpents, all that kind of stuff. I still, to this day, I'm not using it right now because it's upstairs, but to this day, the best incubator someone can use is building one and making one out of like a retired gas station
Yeah.
refrigerator.
They call them merchandisers.
Yeah.
the like soda refrigerators
Exactly.
from convenience stores.
And the reason why is because those things are built bulletproof to be as insulated as possible. Right now I'm using a PVC one that was built by someone local here in Texas, but it literally functions just like a sea serpent's, and I like it. I'm successfully hatching clutches in there, no issues. What I have noticed, because my garage is ambient and because during the breeding season, I'm dropping temperatures, 78 degrees at night to 84 degrees in the day. The PVC incubators, they are not great at insulating. When there is a fluctuation in my garage, I'll have a degree and a half change in my incubation temps on a big drastic day. If it goes from 78 to 84, it's about a degree and a half difference. And fortunately for retic eggs, not a big deal, especially because my temperature, it's all gradual, right? So it's not like there's a degree and a half spike and then a degree and a half spike down. Yeah. So it hasn't negatively impacted my clutches. However, if I wanted to do that with like chondro eggs, they wouldn't. That's not a good idea. So my recommendation, if a lot of people out there are very over controlled and they want their parameters to be dialed in, like to half a degree, if you're that kind of person, build one out of a merchandise freezer or fridge. That's my recommendation. And
hit up your local buddy in the restaurant industry.
I found one on Craigslist for $75. I spent only
everyone says this. I've been on the lookout for months.
Sometimes if you have a restaurant supply store near you,
I do, and I have an uncle that works at
yeah.
one.
Sometimes they will get them in. They're a little more pricey because they're fully refurbed and you don't have to like clean all the gunk out yourself.
He's waiting for one to hit the junkyard in the back, and he's had them, but they're the double door ones. They're absolutely massive. Huge. I think like 8.5 feet wide, something like that.
Yeah.
I simply don't have the space behind me.
Right.
We're kind of hoping to get like the little ones in the front of the supermarket. That's kind of my goal to find. I have no idea if I'll find one. I've also heard wine fridge.
Yep, those
wine
those
fridge
can work
would
too.
work. I just feel like it's a little
narrow.
Small for what I want.
Yeah, I mean, if I have one clutch, I'm hoping
it should do.
Enough. Yeah,
it should do. But and as far as how long I have them on, so I do like to have them on at least a month before my first clutch. So I've had mine on. So 30 days is what I would recommend the standard beforehand. So the moment that you see your female ovulate, turn it on.
Yeah.
Because then she has 2 weeks until she sheds, and then 35 days until she lays. You're giving yourself plenty of time to make sure that you can adjust your temps. But how long do I keep it on for the year? I'm at the point now in my, like, I turned mine on September of last year, and I just now put, it's sad, I put a single egg in a box out of a clutch that was bad and only one egg. I put that egg in there like 3 weeks ago. So that means that egg has another 2 months to go. So I'm probably at the point now where I have my incubator on for 10 months and off for 2 months.
Wow.
We'll see if he has it off at all this year.
Good luck on that. Good luck, one little egg.
Yeah, it's such a cute little tiny egg too. Yeah. So probably I think last season I had it on for like 6 or 7 months. This year I'm probably going to be pushing 10 and quite possibly, like Nathan said, if my Coyote goes when she normally goes, it might just be running through on the year. And it's not like I'm producing a bunch of clutches. Only
it's
3
timing.
or 4. It's just timing of when they all just decide to cycle. Because again, I have 2 rainy seasons and 2 temperature drop kind of times of the year that it happens.
Yeah, we are currently in Pennsylvania during fake spring number 3. So
we have that really bipolar weather around this time of year too.
But you get all 4 seasons in 1 week.
Yeah, we were 67 last weekend, and we had snow and hail this weekend.
Yep, we had very similar. We were high 60s a couple weeks ago, and then it dropped back down to freezing. It dropped into like the 50s. It dropped down to freezing again, and then this week we're going to be back in the high 60s, close to 70.
The frustrating part about where I'm from is at this time of the year, we'll have lows at like 46 degree, but in the same day hit 88. And it's how do you have a 42 degree difference in a single 24-hour period? You
would not deal well with that.
You try to run a breeding program with that big of a fluctuation.
The snakes just all have signs that say, "Why are you doing this?"
Right, exactly. Especially keeping ambient, where I'm not keeping the room the same temperature. And the snakes are like, "What the hell are you doing, dude?
Where did you bring me?" But on that note, speaking of eggs in the incubator, this is kind of more of a, I guess, touchy-feely question, but how did you feel and what did you think the first time you saw that first baby snake coming out of an egg you produced?
Yeah. We've talked about this quite a few. I mean,
I ruined an interview. I made a mistake and checked on him like right before I went on an interview with I think it was Tesla for that one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you were talking about one of our interviews. I was like, what are you talking about?
No, like
job interview, but I didn't want to be working a desk job anyway, so I'm glad that didn't work out. But I shared my excitement with them.
That's right. They're probably like, who is this dude that's talking about
a
snakes?
Nerd.
Right? That's funny coming from a Tesla company calling you.
I feel like when Tesla goes, "Why are you like this?"
That's so true.
You have a niche hobby.
Yeah. Nathan and I have talked about this several times. There's not much that, I think that I got 2 dates that top it, my wedding day and my seeing my daughter born, right? Like those are the only 2 feelings that I could describe that were more intense than hatching these snakes. I will say my very first experience, really shitty, was a Partho clutch during this Texas storm that shut down my incubator.
I actually remember seeing you. This is actually before I knew much about you, but I saw some of your posts circulating about the problems you had with all your temperature fluctuations and the electricity going off. And
it wasn't fun. I had to cut them. I didn't get to see them pip. Then I had to force feed them, right? Nonetheless, was still an amazing experience, but was really shitty. The next year, way better. The next year was way better. And then I'll even say that, like, you asked, like, what was it like that first experience, right? I'll say this. I was so excited for these Soleils that hatched in January. It took me back to that very first feeling, if not even more, like over the moon excited. So I think that if you're producing the right things, that feeling's not going to like go away. Like I have these Mindanaos incubating. It's going to be the first ever in the world F2s. And what I'm excited for is that the F2 ternates look so much different than the F1s. Mm-hmm. So I really don't know what to expect. So
I have an F2, so and I think his personality is a little nicer, but
right.
I don't know. I'm biased. I'm required to be biased.
No, I think you're right. I think you're right. But yeah. So like again, this is like a clutch that I'm going to be over the moon. I'll let Nathan talk about it because Nathan gets really excited when he talks about like seeing snakeheads pop out of the egg.
Well, I've had it fewer times than you have, Lucas. But no, I mean the first time especially, it was like that child on Christmas feeling again that I hadn't had in a very, very long time. Like shaking with excitement, seeing what I got, kind of a thing. And yeah, I don't really know what to compare it to beyond that. The second time, I don't know, it was overshadowed with some other stuff that was going on in my life. Like it was very exciting to see some albinos popping out, but then there was also the bittersweet moments of having stuff that was just like dead in the egg, and one was kinked out but was one of the best looking snakes in the
Dude, that
clutch.
snake was
And
so nice.
yeah, so it's just a great feeling always, to see a pairing that you work so hard on just come to fruition.
And could be heartbreaking.
Yeah, a little
Yeah.
bit of both sprinkled in, but I think more than heartbreaking, those are just teaching moments.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess let's go a little bit for a harder question. Always a difficult topic, but how do you handle culling or babies who are born, like you mentioned, nascent kinks? I know, Lucas, you had the clutch that, everything went wrong. And on the flip side, how much effort do you feel that you can put into a problem baby before it's just obvious that no matter how many times you shove a rat tail down its throat, this isn't working?
Yeah. Oof.
This is a
Yeah.
touchy one.
It
Because
is.
I've seen it kind of go both ways, especially with the tail end of that question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll say for me, that like when I would put an extended effort, which was only that very first clutch, I did it until they died on their own. Outside of that, I just let it take care of itself naturally. I'm going to offer it food. I'll offer it live food, frozen thawed food, a variety diet food. And if the snake is just not compelled to eat, then they just don't, they'll eventually die of starvation, but I'm going to let it continue to get the opportunity. I've had some animals with some pretty bad kinks. Not even kinks, but just like kind of, I had a partho clutch that hatched, and a lot of them had like some neurodivergent, like just
They had
neurological issues.
like a wobble, I think you said.
Yeah, but like some of them were really, really bad. Most of those animals, I gave them a couple nights to see if it would settle down, and they ended up passing on their own.
Oh, okay.
One thing that I think I would like to set up, that I haven't yet, and it's because I don't feel safe having it in my garage and utilizing it in my garage. But I would like to research and develop my own CO2 chamber.
Mhm.
I feel like that's going to be your most ethical way without taking animals to the vet and spending hundreds of dollars for each animal to put them down. And that's going to be the most ethical way to do that. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to be honest, because this is probably in my first 2 seasons of just talking to other people and asking what they do. And these were people I respected. They said, put them in the freezer. I didn't even think twice about it. Now that I've gotten a lot more mature, I've done that with a couple snakes that had neurological issues. But I would say that over the last year and a half, I've had a pretty big change of heart with doing that. I've become a lot more educated, a lot more aware of the pain that can cause, even for a neurologically deficit, like even for a problematic animal. It's just not a good way to go out. It's not nice. So I do need to start considering the chamber and how to do that. Not something I'm proud of, but it's happened, and that's that.
Yeah. So my second clutch is the first clutch that I'm raising up on my own, establishing on my own. The first clutch went out to Reach Out Reptiles and was sold through them. So didn't really get to experience much of that process, but I believe all those animals were thriving, went on to new homes. I don't think there were any issues with failure to thrive there. On the hand of my second clutch, I had one animal who was
puncture the head and twist and do the whole like what the I don't know, the FWC and what they were saying that's recommended and the way that people recommend doing that, cannot do that. Say what you want. Say I'm not meant for breeding if I can't do that, or, crush their head or something, but that's not my style. I can't.
I mean, I think there's also something to be said for trying to do things as humanely as possible, even if it's not the way it's traditionally done. Just trying to elevate even that difficult part of breeding. That
Right.
is something I think it doesn't hurt to try to innovate on, just to make everything a more positive experience, both for the animals who won't thrive and for the breeders who have to deal with that. And thank you for talking about it.
Yeah, I think I'm glad that you brought it up. To be honest, you sent us like the guide and the questions, and I didn't even read past question 5 because they were all great. And I was like, we're going to rock and roll. Who cares? But one thing that I will say is that I think people don't really realize, you can be, and I won't even use the word jaded. For some people, it doesn't bother them. But for others that smashing a head or using that pivot method or whatever the hell it's called, that's psychologically taxing. And I feel like we need to find a way to strike a balance. I'm not in this. I'm doing this because I love the animals. I love seeing the reproduction side of thing. And obviously, there's the breeding side of things and the financial side. That's nice in some cases, but most cases you're breaking even at best. But like, I have to also do what's best for me mentally, as well as what's like best for the animal. And I can't get on board with some of the methods that people would consider the most humane. I got to take care of myself first. If I don't take care of myself, my animals are shit. So
yeah, that's a very good point. But if we want to get to something a little happier, how do you pick your holdbacks?
I'll let Nathan.
And I know you guys have discussed holdbacks before, but do you go by, whichever animal seems the hardiest to try and improve your bloodlines? Do you go by the one with the cute face, in which case you have to keep them all? Or is it just that je ne sais quoi of that one animal that you look at and say, that's the one?
Je ne sais quoi.
Little bit of both, like definitely health of the animal and, what it genetically has. I'm doing, super dwarf morph crosses. And so, yeah, like in the case of the purple phantom tiger female, like she's slamming food every single week. She's, great tongue response, great attitude. Of course, I'm going to keep her around. But then in the case of that purple phantom male that I had to force feed for months and months until he decided, oh, I do like food.
Oh, I am supposed to eat by myself.
In that case, it's just like, I want to look at that animal forever.
Right.
So I was willing to put in the blood, sweat, and tears to establish him. So if it goes beyond that, then it goes beyond that. But I don't, we'll see. I don't think so.
It's a little easier for me because I'm doing mostly locality stuff. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I say that is because when I produce a clutch of pure localities, I'm looking for the one that is the furthest away, most different, crazy pattern than what that locality typically would produce.
Okay, that's a great thing for me to know too, because whenever I picture hatching out a bunch of locality animals, I'm just like, I don't know where I would start on that.
No, I mean, I don't know.
Pick the cute one.
I think I posted it on my Instagram, but you don't have to pull it up. But the one that I picked, my female holdback from the Solaire clutch, the craziest, most aberrant pattern I've seen. And
she has like a stripe, doesn't she?
No. So the one that I picked was just like the whole neck and mid body pattern was all broken up. Like, and when you think of Soleil, you
Okay.
think of like smooth, and it's pretty uniform for the most part and striped out.
Almost that like Kalatoa influence broken up.
Right, but like with crazy thick blacks, which was also a cool part. So she was just like the standout, and then fortunately for me, she also was just a great feeder, right?
Okay.
I will start to reconsider holdbacks once I start doing feeding trials, and if they just are not getting with the program, you know, if they're able to get it on their own, then yeah, I'll keep them back. Like I said, at this point, you know, force feeding is not really something that I do. But yeah, and then when it comes to like, so that was the case for my, you know, all my locality clutches. But now that I've produced, you know, the quote unquote lab line Kalatoas from my wild caught animals, the holdbacks in that entire clutch are just so vibrant and yellow and rich in silver that I'm going to be selectively breeding, you know, and line breeding to make the most brightest yellow and silver Kalatoas that people have seen. And so when I start taking those animals back to the wild caught or to each other to line breed, I'm being very intentional with a look, and that is the brightest and most silver animal from the clutches. So there is some polygenic things that I am looking for. And because I'm new at this with the different localities, at first I'm picking the oddball of the clutch, and then I'll start selectively breeding for, you know, I think it's going to take probably 1 or 2 generations or 2 or 3 generations for me to have a clear direction. And I'm okay with not knowing where that is yet.
Okay, that's interesting because I would not know what to look for in a locality clutch other
Right.
than feeding. Like that to me would just be like
Right.
find the one that wants to eat out of the egg and just keep trying to reproduce that trait until you have a line that like establishes instantly.
Well,
Yeah,
if
and
you do everything right, they should all, you know,
right.
pretty much want to eat out of the egg after, you know, a little bit of influence.
Especially with the locality stuff that I'm working with, it's mostly F1, F2 stuff. So they should be, but I will say this, that, once I start like with the Kalatoa stuff, because I will be line breeding, that's absolutely going to be something that I, without a doubt, am going to prioritize over anything.
I'm also, I guess, just used to ball pythons who
Right. That.
have strong feelings about whether or not food goes in mouth.
Right. Exactly.
That's why I have Retic, so when the ball python doesn't want it, you can give it to the Retic.
Right. The garbage disposals.
Them and like kings and pines, yeah.
See, that's a reason why I kind of want to get an indigo too. I don't have to worry about the neurological issue. I could just literally feed them off.
Yep,
But
that
so
was
much-
the other
so much
option,
poop.
and
Oh my
probably,
gosh.
well, is it the cheaper option over a chamber? Because you
No.
have to
I
maintain
feel
it,
like
feed
then you also
it.
have to buy the snake and the enclosure
Yeah,
and
no,
clean the poo. I think you've now created just an
But
excuse to
it's
get an indigo snake.
exactly, it's a bucket list species.
Yeah, no, it's North America's biggest colubrid, you know, or
Right.
biggest
And I
snake,
mean,
I think.
and you know, for me, you know, I once dreamt about like the dry mark on the Eastern indigo, right? And, you know, I lived in Florida and had a passion for those. But now that I'm here in Texas, like I really like the idea of a rubidus and having a Texas indigo.
Yeah. We are getting towards the end. Next question here is, have you ever produced a clutch that you regret it or would otherwise do over if given the chance? And this can just be, wow, that did not look like I expected, or it can be just, wow, that was a whole mess and a half.
I do. There's one that comes to mind. Nathan, what about you?
I'm thinking hard on this one, and
You don't regret it, even though it created some brown snakes. I feel like you don't regret it.
No. I mean, not when I first. Yeah, no, this can go back to when I first started breeding.
Yeah, this can go like
I
one
regret
snake,
the cooler
whatever.
incubator, and I think I've already made that known.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That's the only thing I regret.
That's
the
good
cooler
to
I can-
know. Yeah.
And
don't
that
do
has
it.
successfully hatched 2 clutches for me, but the condensation, the fluctuation in temperatures, just the overall pain in the ass that thing
Yeah.
was for me.
Guys,
the 2
don't
years
do
that I
it.
used it.
Don't do it. If you're gonna produce a clutch that potentially has $15,000+ in there, get an incubator.
If it has $15 worth of animals in there and you're excited to see them, it's
Right,
just
just
way
get
less of
an
a hassle
incubator.
to deal with something
Yeah.
that can't, it doesn't have the potential to flood your apartment. That's
Yeah. That's
let's get
like
something more renter friendly.
Right.
also as someone who just had to wet dry back my basement because it rained, I don't savor the idea of 50 gallons of water circulating in 2
I
inches of
wouldn't say
styrofoam.
it's that much, but yeah,
It's up there though.
It's
Maybe half.
it's enough.
It's enough. It certainly is.
Yeah, for me, this is only hindsight regret, right? So last year I did a male ocelot that at the time I believed was 66% het endocarmal. And I, had a tiger, 25% Bali yellowhead tiger.
Small female, super small. Yeah.
I mean, she actually wasn't that bad. She was 6-7 years old and 13 feet. So she could have been much bigger, but she, and she was such a sweetheart too. But she, yeah, and she was 100% het endocarmal, proven. So I bred them together, hoping to prove him out. And he didn't prove out. And a third of the clutch took about 3-4 months to take their first meal, which was a pain in the ass. Every single tiger in that clutch, like, they're not like that anymore, but every tiger originally from that clutch, open mouth, bit me probably 100 times. And right now I still have some of those babies coming up on a year old because the mainland market is dead. For more stuff, especially the ocelot stuff. Everyone just started pumping them out. And so from a market standpoint, regret, because he didn't prove, double regret. What I will say that I really loved about the clutch is that she had a yellow head that I believe was the Bali influence, and the ocelot has naturally, just the ocelot gene has a yellow head. Every single baby in that clutch has a yellow head. And I thought that was very, so that's the part in me that's like, no, that's still like very cool. You have some yellow headed snakes that you reproduced. Like that wasn't an accident. And it's kind of influenced me to try to, that's another polygenic trait with locality stuff that I'm going to see if I can, try to I have a pure Superdorf unknown locality from Chris Gear here on a breeding loan that I plan to take to the ocelot with a yellow head. She has an extremely yellow head. Okay. I want to see if I can get some, high percentage Superdorf stuff with yellow heads that aren't just visual ocelot.
I mean, a very tiny Bali yellowhead would be
right. Exactly.
An impressive snake. I got to admit that would be really neat to see.
Right. So I'm going to try to play with the yellowhead factor and see if I can do that. So that was the one part about the clutch that, as I was saying, I regret it. I was like, maybe I don't, but it was still a pain in the ass. And I still have like 10 of them and I'm begging people at this point to please buy them.
And I know one regret you have, but I'm not even going to utter it. We can talk about it after.
What? No, I want to know.
No. Trust me. Lucas, you'll be happy I kept this one out.
What, growing too fast?
No.
That's a regret.
I don't want to bring up previous traumas.
Oh, man. Oh, well, shoot. I know what you're talking about. Yes, okay. I regret that 100%.
So,
screw him.
Guess.
Okay, he got it. Thank you, Lucas. We don't have to talk about it later.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Well, on that note, what's one thing you wish you could go back in time and tell yourself when you first started breeding? Does not have to be in reference to this specific incident. It can just be something like, don't stress. They'll cycle when they're ready.
I have a few notes, and since we're on the topic, number one, because I just mentioned it, slow down with retics.
Yeah.
With retics specifically, slow down. There's a good friend that was on our Discord too. I won't mention their name, but They ended up getting out of retics after buying probably like 20 within a couple year period because they realized like, oh, these snakes, are growing and it's a lot of animals, and they moved out, and they changed their focus to just keeping in bigger enclosures. I grew really rapidly, and I don't fully regret it because I absolutely love my collection. But I am in the process of I'm moving out all the morphs. I'm finding a way to cycle through localities because I really don't want to have more than like 15 to 18 adult retics. That's my cap. And right now I have a total of like 28 to 30 retics that are mined. So that means I need to move about, 14 of these animals out. Second thing is, if you have a mentor and everybody is telling you to steer clear of them and you're young and naive and dumb, like listen to other people. Please listen to them. Like if you have one, that's one thing. If you have three, start to question it, but you start to have 5 to 7 to 10 people tell you stay away. Listen to them. Because I ended up getting screwed over in so many different ways by not separating from a relationship with a
He
really
who does
big,
not deserve to be named on the
from
podcast.
a piece of shit human. And I'm sorry to even, talk about it in that much. And then you mentioned a good point. Thirdly, don't stress. Healthy eggs and healthy embryos are going to hatch. Don't use the foot powder. Don't use the all the crazy different methods. Like just allow the healthy eggs to hatch. Retic eggs can get wet. You can open up my incubator box and the condensation is dripping on them and they're fine. If they're healthy, they're not going to mold. These aren't fragile little green tree python eggs. My first 2 clutches, animals that like within the first 30 days that I've learned that they mold if they don't have an embryo, I'm over here putting foot powder. I'm trying to clean the mold spots. Don't do it. It's not worth the added stress and added work because at the end of the day, if they die, they weren't meant to survive. You're not doing anything wrong. It's not on you. It's just that the eggs were not strong enough.
That's really good advice. Thank you. Nathan?
Yeah, I would just say
Grow faster. Have more than 5 retics in 6 years.
No, I like the pace at which I've collected animals. I think it's sustainable for me.
I'm jealous.
Even though there's a couple that I might move out to make way for the tree monitors. Not necessarily for room, but just for time and,
Time and sanity, yeah.
Yeah. Allocation of mental energy. It goes back to incubation again. I would just, I get you're excited, but you don't need to burp them and check them all the time. Let the process take its course, let them bake, and
shake and bake. Baby.
just enjoy the ups and downs as much as possible. There's going to be plenty of both.
Yeah.
It's good advice.
Yeah.
Actually, we're at the last question.
All right.
So it's one of my favorites. And what project are you most excited about in the coming season and or near future if you're not breeding this season? Like just one project each.
So
coming
season, since I only have a handful of animals that I can potentially breed.
I just broke Lucas.
I know he has too many options, so you really got the gears spinning.
They're locality based at least, but okay.
Oh boy.
I mean, ultimately, like I said, when I get to see the first white snake or first cow popping out of the egg, I think that'll be pretty special for me. But upcoming season, planning to cycle my 7-year-old anery for the first time.
Okay.
She's a little bit bigger than the purple albino, but same bloodlines, so she should prove out het albino as well. So as long as that happens, I'll have my first 100% snow. So,
ooh, that is exciting.
Yeah.
It's-
So seeing that stuff come out and seeing all the combinations I'll have Golden Child, Platinum, Sunfire, Tiger. I'm probably forgetting something else in there, but
This
yeah,
is just
I'll have some fun combos.
potentially, I think you said 62.5% super dwarf with the has the potential for albinos, golden child albinos, platinum, and everything, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's like it's like
Either 62 or 67. I
yeah,
would have to do the math real quick.
that's like an Easter egg hunt at that point. Just don't know what you're gonna find.
Yeah. Well, and it'll be somewhat similar to running my first clutch, just with the higher potential of snow. So it'll be kind of cool to relive that again.
Oh, that is without a back infection.
Yeah.
Twice the fun.
I don't know why I'm laughing. That's so fucked up of me. I'm sorry.
I mean,
It's-
hopefully it could
I mean,
reappear by then.
I am.
Don't say
we
that.
are all
Jeez.
hoping you get that joy minus the back infection. Yeah.
Oh man.
Lucas, did you get it down to one?
No, but I guess I'll say one.
Work it out.
Well, hold on. Nathan cheated. He said like he's excited for this one project, but this season, right? So can I do that?
I
Okay,
gave
yes.
a way in the future and then
Okay,
this
yes.
season.
You
Okay,
can,
Ultimate
okay.
goal and then
Wait,
you
now.
can
okay.
do the like, okay, maybe 5 years from now, and then you can do that this year.
Okay. And this might sound lame for some, but I'm really excited in the future for high percentage Halmahera aneries.
Okay.
I have, I have my Halmahera project, and I have a male that's a super jamp, 50% Kalatoa, 50% Jampea anery. That is just like, he is everything you want in an anery. There's no second guessing. There's no doubting. The guy is like as anery as it can be. And so, 75, 87.5% Halmaheras that have a little bit of, Jamp and Kalatoa sauce in there. Aneries. I think it's going to be sick. My next season excitement is still going to be, I missed it this year, parthoed out, but Ocelot Ternates. So I'm going to, it's the beginning of the project. So of making Ocelot Ternates.
Heads,
I have
right?
Yeah, so these will first be 50% heads, 50% Ternates, 100% head
I was
Ocelot.
like, I didn't know you had a het male.
No, I wish, but yeah, so that's what I'm excited for. I have the perfect Ternate female that has the perfect silver slide flames, and she's super dark with thick blacks. I would love to see this Ternate influence on the Ocelot with this bright yellow head. I think it's gonna look so cool.
All right. Start
That
that
sounds-
6-year timer.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, just seeing what the babies look like, because I know they can have a little influence from the ocelot, like even just carrying the gene, being recessive for it. Plus, all the genes from the mom could be just really neat to see some really beautiful head ocelots.
Yeah, I'm excited for it.
I figured out that percentage on the pairing also.
Okay.
So yeah,
Yes.
it is 62.5 Kalatoa, and then they'd be 15.625 of Jampea.
That's
Nice round number there.
Right? I'm trying to keep it easy.
Yeah.
Alessa, this was a blast.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad we could try something different, that it seems to have worked.
Everyone give Alessa a round of applause.
Don't make too many hand signals and have any screen effects, Lucas.
Right. 2 thumbs up. Get the little icon. Oh, nice. Fireworks.
You
We
figured
did
it out. It even blacks out your background. That's kind of nice.
Yeah. That was
touch.
cool. Alessa, thanks for being the guinea pig. And I think, I don't know
Thank
about
you for having me.
Yeah. It was a pleasure. And I mean, we've talked for a while now. We've wanted to have you on for a while. And this was, we I don't know, we've been doing a lot of different things. And I think, Nathan, I don't know about you, but like this whole like interviewing us segment, like if we stick with it with just like our Patreon members, I think that would be a really cool way to get them to get a little bit more out of being a member.
Yeah, this was fun. I had a lot of fun with this.
As long as their interest is there, and I know Alessa's was.
Right.
I mean, I wanted to ask questions anyway, so this was a great format. This was a lot of fun. Can't wait to clean these 2 females tomorrow and have them come flying out at me. That's going to be exciting.
Yep.
We wish you luck in all your endeavors. And,
you.
We're always there in your corner. So, if you have any weird situations, you can reach out to us.
Yeah, no, right now I think it's just all the beautiful Pennsylvania barometric pressure shifts. There's just telling them, it's time to do something exciting.
Right. Alessa, before you kick you out, we kick you out, do you mind sharing where people can find you so they can follow you, watch your new breeding journey, and see what animals you got?
So I'm on Instagram at Lilliputpythons, and you can also see the one and only ThePoopleAlbino on Instagram at ThePoopleAlbino.
Awesome.
Yes.
That's such a great plug. Nathan, don't forget to put that in the description, please.
Yeah, she has. I have to put a new picture up for her, but yeah, she's got her own Instagram.
I love that. Classic.
It's my favorite.
All right, Alessa.
It's one of those animals I didn't want to let go, but in these circumstances, I was happy to.
Gonna try giving her a chick, hopefully this week, and see if she still has to stare it in the eye to eat it.
Hey, I'm trying chicks for my first time this upcoming week, so best of luck to us both.
It's crack cocaine. Make sure you don't feed like 4 or 5 in a row, because they will literally like I've had some that like will completely like not want to switch back over.
Alessa can tell you by the size of these hatchlings, they're not ready for 5 or 6 in a row quite yet.
No. I mean feedings in a row.
And you can say that you can see that too with your hatchling, Lucas.
I've had hatchlings who I think were on chicks for like 6 months, and we're still happy to take her out when the time came. But
my coyote was a pain to get back over.
Mine will eat anything, or she's 50% coyote.
Lucas just had a little bit of trauma with
I did
one hatchling.
It was a pain.
Scarred his experience forever.
Yeah. Alessa, thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you. Have a great night. Bye.
See you guys.
All right, Nathan. Dude, I think that we need to do these more often.
I agree.
It was fun. It's different. It's a change of pace. It's a way to get information out of us without us having to like fabricate, like, what are we going to talk about this week? Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, I liked it. Let us know if this is something you guys want to see just as viewers. We, of course, will be talking to our Patreon family. If you want to become a part of that, maybe become a part of one of these future episodes, hit that link down below or go to patreon.com/TheReticLounge. We'll see you on the next one.
Uh